Hello. I believe that we're officially on. This will be Get Valiant number 123. I always like those 1, 2, 3. I don't know. It's gonna
Well,
be a
no,
long time before we
right?
get another episode with just consecutive numbers.
Yeah. Not until we get to episode 666. We'll be there in
Six.
no time.
That'll be extra special.
Yes. We will sacrifice someone to the Dark Lord that night.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Speaking of innocence, we got a co-host again.
Yes, co-host Archer. He's not asleep, so he's gonna hang out with Dad and do the podcast. So hopefully he's quiet. If he gets crazy, I'll step off for a minute. But usually he's really good. He's not much of a crier. I say that now, he'll
Yeah,
probably
you
raise
just
hell.
jinxed it.
So
Totally jinxed it. Yeah,
probably.
no, it's cool to have him again.
Well,
We
good.
don't get much Archer in the comics these days, so we got to get him
Nope.
somewhere.
Gotta get this Valiant somehow. Gotta get Archer represented one way or another.
Yep. Um, so we got. There really isn't a whole lot of news to talk about. I'm basically on pins and needles until we get some Bloodshot news.
Yeah,
Um, Movie news and stuff. Having read the first issue, the ash can version of the first issue of the upcoming Bloodshot run, I'm super excited for that. And we will get to talk about a Bloodshot issue. But anyway, like I said, there's not a lot of news going on right now, but we've got three different things that we can talk about that just came out, starting with the handbook this year.
yeah. Now, real quick, this won't really apply to the handbook, but the other issues going forward, comics came out today, and since we're on a new schedule, you've been warned. We do go through spoilers, so
That
try
will
not to
happen.
get spoiled. Hopefully, you guys have read this stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
it's Wednesday. You know you got to get to the comic book store and read those books right away.
that's right. So the Valiant Handbook. So for those of you who might be new to this kind of thing, the handbook is basically just an index of character profiles. And honestly, I thought they did really well with this one. This one is just like filled to the brim with like character information. So a lot of characters getting full pages, but then on those full pages, they went through and they did a lot of like adding like the secondary characters that you see in their books. There's not much. I mean, there's no story to really tell you about this thing, but I feel like if any of you are like new fans who are not very familiar with Valiant, this is a great thing to pick up because for one, it'll take you like an hour or two to read it. It's comic size. It's not. It's only like $3.99, I believe, but it's just a ton of information. It'll give you a really good understanding of the Valiant universe. Um, that's really all there is to say about it. I didn't have any complaints myself. I felt like the right characters had the right size profiles.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I always think about when these types of things come out is that you can kind of see, well, sometimes you can kind of see who the company is going to be focusing on moving forward by who they highlight in a book like this. But I don't think that we really got that out of this handbook because they threw like everybody in that motherfucker. Like, dude, I mean, we got long dead characters in there. But what's really cool about that is that I think that this is perfect for new readers because Valiant has, while they don't put out a ton of books every month, if you're just hearing about Valiant right now, if the Bloodshot trailer drops, a little bit later this year, when the Bloodshot trailer drops and people start wanting to know more about Valiant, this is going to be the perfect thing to point people to. And then they can look through all the different types of characters that Valiant has and say, I'm interested in this type of character. It tells you these are the trade paperbacks to read. And then you can dive into the Valiant universe based on, character designs and descriptions that you think are interesting. Honestly, if I picked up one of those and I was flipping through it and I saw the Armor Hunters, I would absolutely want to read that book.
Oh yeah, I know, and and the only thing I would say is like if you're looking for something that's going to tell you like the entire history of a character, this isn't it. You're not going to get enough of the history of any of these characters really to understand like everything they've gone through. But they're not really the handbook's not really meant for that. Even like back in the day, reading like the Marvel handbook and like Who's Who from DC. I mean, they never did that really either. But they gave you a good understanding of who the characters were and the kind of things that they dealt with. So, as far as like how I would grade this thing, like I think it's a great read. Honestly, like people really liked it. I know, like I saw a lot of people who voted for it, like on our little poll on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of hard to grade it though because there's no story to it. It's just information. But I felt like Valiant did a really good job with this. I'd probably go really high because I'm a big fan of these, and I've got tons and tons of like handbooks of various universes and things like that. And so I'd probably go honestly like 4.5. I love these things. And I just think like if you ever want to get some info on a character and become kind of nerdy and know a little bit of it, perfect thing to get. Great way to learn a lot about a character.
I definitely did not expect to have a grade for this, so that's not something I've thought about at all.
But like I said, I love stuff like this. So, I mean, for me, like I was like, I know what I'm scoring it.
No, and it is awesome. Honestly, I think from my perspective, I think that it's,
You don't
huh?
have to read it.
Yeah, I just think it's perfect as what it is, right? Like it's exactly what it's trying to be, and I think that's what you need, right? Like that's what you would want. Um, like I said, I think that the perfect thing to do with these handbooks, now I'm honestly that I'm thinking about it, I might ask the shop around here to order a bunch of extra ones. I'll fucking buy them and have them leave them on the counter and tell people to flip through them and take them if they want them. Because like if like I said, I think if you were brand new to Valiant and you found a Valiant handbook, that's the perfect way for you to look through and see like maybe all you've ever heard of is Bloodshot and Exo Manowar, and you look through the handbook and you find Faith, and you realize, wow, like this is a character that speaks to me, or Doctor Mirage. I mean, there's so many different flavors. Britannia, right? Like that has nothing to do with the rest of the universe, but you can find that character and say like, damn, that sounds like a really interesting story, and go pick up 3 awesome trade paperbacks. I think that is, I think that it accomplished that aspect of what it is very, very well. So
Yep.
don't really have a grade for it, but I think it's really good. Um, and I think it's a good thing for existing fans too, for us to kind of be able to go through and say like, I remember reading this stuff, but who are these characters again? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I always think I just can't remember everything. And sometimes, you look at those things and it kind of makes you remember, like, oh, you know what? I do like, say, Divinity. Like, I haven't read Divinity in a while. I need to go back and read that. I think those books really give you like they're kind of like a good way of just getting you to like go back through and check out the stuff that's already come before. So I think
Yeah,
it's an essential thing to get. People should read it and love it.
absolutely. So the other things that we have to talk about are, oh man, what's the Livewire issue number?
We're not on Livewire.
Oh, it's Punk Mambo.
Punk Mom, come on. Eric's
What?
looking kind of bad tonight. He's
Yeah,
obviously okay.
I don't know what's going on with me. We're on Punk Mambo. Is it what, number 3?
Number 3.
Okay. Woof. I got that much right. Um, Sean Hayes is saying about the pinup in the handbook that it had Savage. Um, you know, we don't really see any indication that that character is going to come back, but it'd be really awesome if it did.
Man, it's one of those things where like I liked Savage. I didn't love Savage, but I know that like the fan base loves Savage. People love that story, and I feel like at some point Valiant's kind of got to listen to people and be like, okay, like let's do something with this. Let's get a pitch from somebody. I'm sure. I mean, I would imagine B. Claymore would have had more to go with it, and he's still with the company. But man, I mean, they got to do something with it. I feel like that's like out of all the things that people ask for, like Savage such a new property that it gets asked for all the time by people. People mention it all the time, like the characters that they want to see come back. So it's just
All
like,
Savage has is a single trade paperback. I mean, there's that one little story, and
ends
yeah,
on a
people definitely want.
cliffhanger of sorts, you know,
Yeah,
but like, I mean, but I agree. Like, it is one of those things where people are just like, give us more of it, you know, and I think at some point, I would hope that Valiant does, you know, just because like there's definitely more story, and he could be a cool character for sure once he starts interacting with a lot of other people. I mean, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I definitely see the potential of it. And for
yeah,
anyone who did love it, that's great.
yeah. I think it was a really good story, and it had amazing, amazing art. I think that's some of the best Clayton Henry stuff. That's some of my favorite Clayton Henry stuff, and it's also Louis LaRosa is just phenomenal in that
As
book.
always, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so not Livewire, but Punk Mambo #3 and Bloodshot Rising Spirit #8, the finale, written by Elliot Ray Hall. And I didn't even look. Is it still Regs doing the art on this?
No, it was like multiple artists on this one.
Okay, well that makes sense because there were definitely some differences
Yeah.
page to page. Um, I okay. So for me, these two issues, when I was reading them, because I read them back to back, and I felt like I had two polar opposite reactions. For me, I thought Bloodshot Rising Spirit 8 was a fun ride all the way through. I think that it was just, if you take it as just fun action with some story weave through it, it's really good as an issue of that. I think that is accomplished really, really well. So it was enjoyable to read through, but when you got to the end and see how things got wrapped up, all I could feel was just be reminded of kind of the lackluster nature of the series as a whole. I think that Elliot did as good a job as anybody could have been expected to do ending this book without, making it into something else, which would have been even worse. But the flip side, I felt like Punk Mambo, like as I read the issue, the art's really good, and that is the one thing that always stands out to me. But also, I thought the story was a little bit slower, and so I felt like I was kind of dragging through it a little bit. And then at the end, that was when I got really excited, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. So I felt like, Punk Mambo was slow, but had an ending that got me really excited. Bloodshot Rising Spirit was fast paced and fun, but had an ending that just, left a bittersweet taste in my mouth.
My only disagreement was that I would say I liked Punk Mambo the whole way through. So let's talk about that one a little bit. I like the fact that we kind of see a little bit more of the players behind the scenes as to what's going on with the story. So we meet
Yeah,
a guy from a voodoo family who has no magic, but his ability is that he can turn off magic, and so he basically leaves Punk Mambo a bit vulnerable to the people around him, and they brutally like beat the hell out of her. Like there's a panel where you see her like get sucked in the face,
yeah,
and I that was something I wasn't expecting. Because like I mean, it's not like you can't show violence against women, but I was like, damn, like that's a rough panel, Punk Mambo. You just got laid out. Um, but I thought the issue did a good job of kind of explaining like here's all the people that are in charge. It's not just this Loa that's stealing the voodoo gods. Like there's someone in control of that. So I liked that, and I wasn't really expecting that kind of twist with the story. So I mean, like I thought it was a really solid issue. I wouldn't say it was like the best issue. It'd probably be my least favorite issue of the run. I would definitely say that, but I thought it was a good issue. And again, I mean, I just think we've said this two times prior. If you look at Adam Gorham's art on the series, he's so good with the faces. He's good the whole time anyway. But man, I just think like he just takes a minute longer to make everybody look unique. And not only that, but like to take the time to be like, okay, this person's in trouble, their face is going to convey it. Or, whatever's going on. Like his art is so expressive with the faces. And it just makes me feel like you lose that a lot of times with other artists when you look at books. I reminded, as much as I love Steve Dillon's work, he did Preacher and Punisher. I always felt like a lot of his characters really look the same. They just really look the same a lot of times.
Yeah,
And
Jesse Custer and Frank Castle are the same person.
yeah, Frank's just a
Um,
bigger version of Jesse Custer. That's all. And
and
so,
another example of that, I love Greg Capullo's art. I have a tattoo of Greg Capullo art on my arm because I absolutely love his art. But that is definitely one of the biggest weaknesses I think in his art is that his faces all look the same, and he doesn't have as expressive, emotions as somebody like Adam Gorham gets across.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, this is art wise, I think a great book. One thing that you said that I completely agree with is that of the three issues we've gotten of Punk Mambo so far, this one has been my least favorite, which isn't a terrible thing. I just loved the other two issues, and I felt like this one was like setting the pieces and showing us the stakes. And while there was, I mean, that crazy fight, like you mentioned, I don't know, man. I want like high. That's why I'm such a big Bloodshot fan. I want high action explosions and fights and car chases and whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah, yeah. I just think like this was it was a good setup issue for like what's going to happen with the next two issues because you got to have things explained. And one thing I do like about this too is that it does show the vulnerability of Punk Mambo because she's not just like some like magic tank who like no matter what comes her way, like she's coming out on top. Like she gets beat. I mean, she eventually like a few pages later, like she gets out of the way. She gets enough distance from her and this man who's kind of pulling the strings that her magic comes back, and then she apparently wins kind of off panel. But still, I like the fact that we did see her kind of take the L a little bit, if you know what I mean. Like she doesn't like just walk through everything and it's not all perfect. But definitely, you need those issues sometimes where like things are explained, where things don't always go the hero's way, if you will. For me though, like I sit here and I already think like, please keep Colin Bunn around in Valiant's universe. Please do
yeah,
something else with him. Plan
yeah,
another miniseries, plan a one shot, maybe give him an annual or something, just something to keep him around because I really like his writing. He's a good fit. He understands. Like he just makes. I mean, like you. I think you could almost have him just like rewrite all the magic stuff. I like what he's doing so far so much. But my score on this, I'd give it a 4. A really solid 4 though. I know that I've given the other issues a lot higher scores, but I thought this was great. Just a little bit of that like those issues where like you don't just see like a lot of stuff going on, but like it explains a lot. Good issue.
yeah. I think that this is one of those issues where if you read this story all at once, this would just be the one of the lull parts of the story, and
Yeah,
every good story has
you wouldn't
those.
think about giving it like its own individual score if you read the trade.
Right. Exactly. And every story needs, high points and low action points. And I don't want to say low points as though it's like terrible, but you get those, yeah, you need the high action points and you need when the energy is really low. And I think that this was a low energy issue that gave us a lot of information. And I think that it's one of those things where things happened and flowed really naturally, and it made it feel a little bit slow, but I would prefer that over bad writing and a bunch of mindless exposition. So I think that this does a really good job of, like I said, kind of putting the pieces in place, setting the table for what's coming, putting all the pieces on the board for what's coming in the next couple of issues. And
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I would come in just a hair lower at a 3.75 on this issue for me. I still think that it's a really good book, and like I said, I think that taken as in context of the story, I think that this issue makes perfect sense. And like I said before, the biggest impact on me was that ending because we've got these moments where all these voodoo gods are saying, we're putting our trust in Punk Mambo. Then we see her get the ever loving shit beat out of her, and then at the end, dude's like, "Look, you're obviously not perfect, and I think that you're actually responsible for a lot of this, but my only choice now is to work with you." And so, like, I'm just really excited to see them actually work together, and I'm excited to see how Um, one characteristic Punk Mambo absolutely has is that she's adaptable and she's creative. So she's going to come up with some craziness in the next couple of issues to figure out what's really going on and to put an end to all this and whatever to save the day. And I can't wait to see it. Yeah, I think that this is a really good book, and I definitely agree with you that I'd like to see Colin Bunn stick around. Um, if we could get like the reverse of, you know, how the Valiant and Book of Death were big event books that led into individual character stories. It would be really cool if we could get, you know, him writing Punk Mambo and tie that into something with more characters and make it something bigger.
Oh yeah,
I would definitely, like you said, I'd love to see him write more magic stuff. That's clearly something he could do. And I imagine that he could bring Ninjak in because obviously Ninjak and Punk Mambo have a history. I think
yeah,
Cullen Bunn could bring Ninjak in, Shadow Man, and make it really awesome. Give us another like Rapture.
yeah. So then the next book, last book, really,
Yes.
Bloodshot Rising Spirit #8. Um, so Eric and I we like Elliot. We think he's a good guy. His writing has definitely been better than I think what we've seen on this series. And so this was his last issue, and he really came in to just kind of like end the story, basically. Came in to be the janitor, if you will, and I think for like what he was left with, he's done a decent job on this. I don't know like what I mean, like I don't love this story. Like I've had my complaints in the past, but at the same time, I look at this and I think, man, like Elliot's writing is like better than what we've seen with this series, and I don't know what else he could really do on this. Given like where the story was. So I mean, like for me, like this issue basically is just a fight between Bloodshot and another person with nanites. And then we find out a little bit more about this guy who is named Ray Garrison, the programmer who was brought in to write this character personality, if you will. And I don't know, I thought it was decent. It was a good fight. It was a lot of action. Bloodshot is like basically a murderer, though. Like he's just like picking fights and just killing people. So it's kind
Yeah.
of a weird take, a really weird take on the character, like given like this is where he is supposed to have began.
Well, I mean, that Bloodshot that got that serial killer personality implant is the one that they said they incinerated, and the new one is that army dude.
Yeah. So like there is a twist at the end of this book too. Like I forgot all about that. And so it's like the guy basically writes the program to shut down the nanites for a moment, but it has to affect both people who have the nanites. So the thing is, I think at the end of this, we're not really any better off knowing anything about Bloodshot, if you think about it. Like we followed a character for like 7.5 issues, and at the very end, it's a different character, complete like a different body and everything.
Yes, but I think that the important thing, I still enjoy it as, you know, the history of the Bloodshot program. So, I mean, that guy that they incinerated was basically another member of the Bloodshot squad, just one that you would not have wanted to have on Bloodshot Island. Or maybe you would. I don't know. I don't know how
Yeah,
that would have gone. But I think that it was, I don't know, man. It's not bad. I think that a lot of people are have really ragged on this book. And I don't know how many people have actually read it all the way to the end. Um,
I'm one of those people who's ragged on it. I will definitely agree with that. But again, like I've said, I've liked a little bit more what Elliot has done with this. Um, but like at the same time, like it's a bit of a mess, and it's just like, what the hell did we just spend 8 issues reading? Like it kind of throws you for a loop at the very end, and then you're just like, wait a minute, like we've been reading about that other guy who's supposed to be Bloodshot, and he's not Bloodshot. It's this other guy that just pops up and sort of kind of saves the day a little bit, and then the personality is named after the guy who wrote the program. But I don't know, like honestly, I'll say, like I said before, I don't think like the people who are writing this book prior put that much thought into this book. So I give Elliot a ton of credit on this, because I think he came in to make this thing decent, like he probably did as best he could. in the space he had. Because I
I
think when I had talked to him in Emerald City, he was still like, I'm coming on the book, like I think like I'm just waiting to see when they announce it and everything. So I don't know how much time he even had to even be able to write this thing, coupled with all the other stuff he was trying to work on. So, but not bad. That's all I can say about these last couple issues. They're not bad. I think the issues prior have not been good. And I do kind of think that this series is like the low point of Valiant's um, involvement with Bloodshot.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to argue that. I think this is the lowest point in the Bloodshot.
Can only go up from here though.
But here's the thing about that. It could be a lot worse. This could,
Oh, it
we
could be
could get
worse.
much
Yes.
could get much worse. So I mean, well, I know you were joking, but you're saying, it can only go up from here. But really, I think that we should be realistic, and yeah, maybe this book hasn't been up to the standard that we, hold most Valiant to, and especially when we just came off of, Jeff Lemire writing the character for a long time and doing a lot with him. Obviously this isn't like that. We had a lot of writers changing, but we also know that we're getting a new Bloodshot book. For me, like in my head canon, I'm almost willing to just consider this a fun little Elseworld story and move on from it.
I will say this: I did think this issue and the last issue were better than that all black issue that Jeff put out.
God, you motherfucker. The other thing that I do want to say though is that I definitely think the last three issues were the best three of the series. The
Yeah.
other highest point being the first issue, probably. And there were good moments in the rest of it, but for this issue, for me, I have a really hard time with it. I would say I'm going to come in at a 3.25. I think that the writing is the strongest part. The art is kind of all over the place because it's multiple artists. And I don't think necessarily their art was bad. There were definitely panels that made me do a double take and things like that that weren't great. But I just think that it was a good, okay book. Just Elliot did the best he could ending what wasn't the greatest series. But here's the thing about this, and I know I've said this 100 times. Elliot has come in and finished books, and every single time he does better than could reasonably be expected of him. When he did the ending, like two arcs or whatever of Quantum and Woody, that was amazing. That stuff was
I agree.
awesome.
I
You
totally agree,
know,
and he'll probably never get enough credit for that, because Kibble Smith was a bigger name,
yeah,
and there's a lot of like, hopes, right on that guy's work, and then he stepped off, and then I think Elliot just really like changed like how you tell the story of Quantum and Woody. He didn't just make
yeah.
it slapstick and silly. I mean, he made them brothers. And the two issues that kind of sort of tie into Harbinger Wars too, very loosely, I think are great. But I mean, even like that arc with what was the infomercial man? Like I saw like
Yeah.
a lot of creative stuff in that. I loved how it ended, and I always just think, man, like Valiant, keep giving that guy something to do here. He obviously likes the characters. He's got passion. He's willing to just come in and do whatever is asked of him. And I just hope it pays off one day where they're like, hey, we're going to launch something. Elliot gets to write it. And I
That's
know
my
a
whole
lot of
thing
this comes
too.
off the fact that Eric and I have met Elliot and we like Elliot. And I think if anybody meets him, you'll like him. He's so different. He's a really funny guy. He definitely speaks his mind. But I do think I think for the most part, I like everything he wrote, except for like I wasn't like real strong on like that Archer and Armstrong one shot.
Same. That's the
That's
only
it.
thing that he wrote that I wasn't huge on. But his Bloodshot's Day Off was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I just think like that guy probably comes in, like give him a chance. Like if he can do that stuff like kind of last minute to clean stuff up, man, imagine what he could do if he had the time to like actually plan out a series. Give him a shot. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're both on the same page there. Did you give
yep.
a score for this?
I did not. I'm gonna go with 3. Um, I would be really interested to know like what I would think of this series if I reread the entire thing. It's not something I'm thinking about really. Like I don't think I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't wait to reread. Bloodshot Rising Spirit. You know, because I could think all the time about stuff that I want to reread. It's really easy. There's a lot of great stuff that Valiant's written. But you know, I mean, like I said, you know, we got a new book coming out. I've got to read what I think is the whole first issue. I'm really excited for what Tim Seeley's doing, and I think if people are like, "Hey, I want tons of action and badass shit going on," you're gonna be happy with the next Bloodshot, at least for that first issue.
Yeah,
So just waiting
yeah,
for that, man. And I think it was in the solicitations this month. I'm not sure, but
yeah. I think so. Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
I
they're doing
can't
the carbon fiber cover.
wait. I'm okay with it. You know, if it sells, I'm just gonna say this. Supposedly, Rising Spirit One was the best-selling Bloodshot issue. Like they sold like more than they've ever sold of any other Bloodshot issue. VEI had, not going back to Kevin Van Hook's days. But I just hope people go for that one and try to break that, you know, Bloodshot selling record because I think the first issue's been phenomenal.
Yeah, that
Good
first
big
issue,
way.
that ash can, I mean, it had no color, so I know that it's just going to be that much more badass when we finally get it. Um, and yeah, I mean, that first issue shows us that we're going to get, like I said, Lemire's whole thing was breaking down the character and rebuilding him intellectually, and that was really good. It was really well done. Seeley is taking the exact opposite approach and making it um, not about redefining Bloodshot, but about saying, what's a really awesome story we can write with, the Bloodshot that, the kind of the stereotypical Bloodshot that you would think of if somebody explained the character to you.
Yeah.
It's a very, straightforward action, but there's still like twists and turns in the story. It's really interesting. There's new characters. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good, and the art in it is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm really excited for that new Bloodshot. Um,
Is there anything coming out next week?
I was just gonna say Sean wants after Bloodshot Rising Spirit, he wants a break from Bloodshot and fill that hole with Savage. And I would be okay with that, but I'm also excited knowing what having an idea at least what we're going to be getting in the next series. But no, I don't think we're getting any books next week, so we'll probably take a week off. It's 4th of July anyway, so
Yeah.
probably don't really need to be doing an episode. So we'll take next week off and then be back whenever the I'm not exactly sure what's going to drop next, but
We'll be too busy blowing up shit next week to do this podcast.
yeah, 100%. But I do want to thank Sean for hanging out with us in the live chat, obviously, and always good to see him on the episodes, hanging out with us live. Anybody else wants to hang out, you know where to find us on YouTube. You can always like us and subscribe, or like the videos, subscribe, and hit the bell when you subscribe so that you can get notifications when we go live and come join us.
Yeah.
We're also, we have a group on Facebook, not a page, but you can join our group. You can talk about Valiant, you can talk about the podcast, you can make suggestions of things that we can discuss. And also, if there are interviews that you want to see, we've gotten some crazy interviews that I never expected we would have been able to. We had an amazing conversation with Joshua Dysart. We got to hang out with a bunch of the people that involved in the creation of Ninjak versus the Villain Universe. So yeah, if you have any interview suggestions or anything like that, we definitely would do our best to try to accommodate them. Or if you have any other suggestions, we're also always working on other things. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling. You
You're
can
okay, man. You know, sometimes you got to do that on podcasts. You know, you got to be like, hey, these are the things we have, and these are the things we try to do, and we'll see what we can do to make you guys happy. But
But you run a Twitter also.
yeah, I do our Twitter. So yeah, you know, like you can, you know, if you ever need to get a hold of us, Eric and I are very easy to get a hold of, either Facebook or Twitter. We have an email. Send your comments, send your whatever you got to say, positive or negative. We don't care. So
Yeah, we appreciate the attention. No,
we're attention starved.
yeah. Hopefully though, people are hanging out and listening and reading Valiant comics and enjoying them. Um, but I want to say thanks to Archer for hanging out with us, everybody else for watching and listening,
It was
And
very good.
yeah, signing
Uh,
off, I'm Eric Baumgard
I'm Josh Rathman,
and Archer.
Archer.
I hope everybody
Valiant,
stays
send them a shirt
valiant.
already. Come on.
Yeah, do the onesie.
They did say they would, and then, well, those emails haven't been responded
Well, after Bloodshot Rising Spirit, we got a palate cleanser week next week. So we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks with more fresh Valiant goodness. You all stay valiant.
to. Bye.